Welcome to the wonderful world of books, one of seven worlds in Seven World Productions, a subsidiary of Angelgram Music. My name is Gino, and I am sole owner of Angelgram Music and executive director of Seven World Productions. Continuing our series from the world of books is In Search of Beauty, where we now have had 12 chapters. And this is chapter number 12 coming up. Emily. Hope you enjoy. Go and be inspired. Previously on In Search of Beauty, I worked hard at improving my skills as a piano player and songwriter. Then, in the spring of 1976, another defining moment came when at the end of one evening's performance, we received word that Mr. Meeker had suffered a heart attack in Houston, Texas, where he had gone for a speaking engagement. He died, and it seemed that all of our dreams would die with him. I had lost a second mentor, and I began to feel as if I was jinxed in this life. Every man that I looked up to had died suddenly and left me like a boat without a sail or rudder. I felt lost. But life has a way of making up for losses like that, and I would soon learn that lesson. Chapter 12. Emily. The death of Mr. Meeker was a shock to Charlie's Place kids. None of us knew what would happen to us. Would we stay open or close down? Did we need to look for other work, or were we going to be able to stay together? As it turned out, Milton Bloodworth from Dallas came to us and said if we moved Charlie's Place from Fort Worth to Dallas, he would fund us. And so in the fall of 1976, Charlie's Place in Fort Worth closed down and moved to Dallas to open as Incredible Charlie's at the Century Room of the Adolphus Hotel. This Baroque masterpiece has been a legend among America's historic hotels since 1912, when Missouri beer baron Adolphus Busch was approached by city founders to erect a luxury palace worthy of the Lone Star State and one of his most lucrative markets. Fame, fortune, and flamboyance came together in 21 stories of unabashed beaux arts splendor that critics have called the most beautiful building west of Venice. Throughout its history, luminaries such as Babe Ruth, the Vanderbilts, U2, Oscar de la Renta, Donald Trump, and Queen Elizabeth II have chosen the Adolphus as their Dallas place of residence. The Century Room was made famous by all of the big bands touring through there during the years of World War II. Glenn Miller, Tommy Dorsey, Duke Ellington, and others had played there, and we were honored to take that stage in memory of Mr. Meeker. Thanks to Mr. Bloodworth, we performed 6 nights a week with Monday night off for the next 2.5 years. During that time, I came to take a liking to one of the female performers in our show, a fiery Latin girl named Emily Raina Brown. Emily reminded me of Renee from 3rd grade. She had black hair with dark eyes and a very talented voice. Emily sang and performed with a very professional and passionate manner. She could not read music, but could learn music by ear very fast. Emily had a young son, Brian, from a previous marriage. Her ex-husband had custody and lived in Seattle. Emily had visitation rights on every other holiday and sometimes in the summer. I moved in with Emily in Arlington, Texas. We never married, but we sure behaved like we had. Both of us took daytime jobs in case Incredible Charlie's would close prematurely. We both worked at Whittle Music Company on Oak Lawn Avenue in Dallas. I worked in the sheet music department, and Emily worked as the secretary to Jane Calvert, the head of the sheet music department. We would get up early every morning and drive from Arlington to Dallas, a 20-minute commute. We would work all day, and at 5 p.m. we would drive from the Oak Lawn area to downtown Dallas to perform at the Adolphus. Within 6 months, I was promoted to the piano sales department at Whittles. My pay increased, but it was tied to commissions. I had to sell my quota, or I would be terminated. I also accepted a playing gig at lunchtime in the tea room of Tycha's department store in downtown Dallas. I worked from 9 to 12 at Whittles, drove downtown by 12:15 to play piano at Tycha's, and had to be back at Whittles by 1:30. At 5, Emmy and I would get downtown by 5:30, eat our supper at Incredible Charlie's. Showtime was at 8, with dinner music at 7, played by yours truly. We would get home to Arlington about midnight and start all over again in the morning. It was quite a hectic time, with no time for real dating or entertaining. We worked constantly to pay for our bills and a nice 2-bedroom house in Arlington. I was not very good at meeting my quota of selling pianos. Just because one knows how to play the instrument does not mean one knows how to sell them. I lacked the killing instinct at closing. If a customer with a small child was close to buying a piano, I would recommend that they rent one first for $50 a month. They would know after a few lessons whether to continue with lessons or cancel. The rental could apply toward the purchase. Consequently, I rented more pianos than sold them and was not able to meet my quota. After a few months, Whittles let me go. During that time, Emmy and I had some problems. I was a smoker and she was not. She had a fiery temper, and a few times it got close to being violent. Since we were not married, it was easy for both of us to say maybe we should see other people. I moved out into my own apartment and got another day job at Whittle's rival music store, Brook Mays. They had a store in Arlington, and I worked there during the day and gave up my lunch gig. Emmy and I continued to work at Incredible Charlie's during the evening hours. It was not easy because we were both very jealous of each other seeing other people, and we tried to not let it affect our performances. Thankfully, we were able to do that. During one evening after our regular performance show and before our goodnight show, we were invited to the lobby of the Adolphus to hear a men's barbershop chorus sing. They were called the Vocal Majority. We all went up to listen, and after their performance, a young man by the name of Jim Clancy came up to several of our male performers and asked us if we wanted to join and sing with the group. I remember thinking if I only had the time I would join, but with 2 jobs I would not be able to, so I did not join the Vocal Majority. It was years later that I had the privilege of singing with this group and helping them earn their 11th gold medal. Not one of the 12 men who gathered on that first cold night of December 2nd, 1971, could have imagined the success of the Vocal Majority. They wanted to form a chapter that would become the finest singing ensemble in the world. So, under the guidance of founder, first president, and marketing director Bob Arnold, the chorus was born, and Ray Anthony consented to be the first director in April of 1972. Born to compete, the Vocal Majority would win its first Southwestern District Chorus Championship in the fall of 1973. In the summer of 1974, 73 men mounted the risers as the VM entered its first international competition. After a disappointing third-place finish, Ray Anthony convinced Vocal Majority member Jim Clancy to take the role of director in August of 1974. The Vocal Majority returned to international competition in 1975 in Indianapolis, yielding the Vocal Majority's first gold medal. There was great disappointment the following year, however, when a return to the next year's international swan song performance in the summer of 1976 was financially impossible. 1977 would offer the Vocal Majority its third Southwestern District Chorus Championship in Houston, and the men of Vocal Majority hoped to win their second gold in Cincinnati in the summer of 1978. The chorus lost the championship by only 10 points in a heartbreaking loss to the Louisville Thoroughbreds. Clancy would later say, "That one loss was the best thing that ever happened to us because learning to overcome that loss helped us develop heart and character." the loss is when the real heart and soul of Vocal Majority began. It was to be the last gold medal lost in international competition. In July of 1979, the chorus returned to the winner's circle with a second gold medal, this time in Minneapolis. With its winning tradition recaptured, the Vocal Majority would capture each successive international gold for which it qualified. Pittsburgh in 1982, Minneapolis in 1985, San Antonio in 1988, Louisville in 1999, Pittsburgh in 1994, Indianapolis in 1997, Kansas City in 2000, and Montreal in 2003. The Vocal Majority won its 11th gold medal in Indianapolis. The Vocal Majority tradition extends well beyond the Dallas-Fort Worth Metroplex. Vocal Majority has performed in England, Scotland, and Canada. In its 30-year history, the VM has sung for Presidents Ronald Reagan and George H.W. Bush. I was proud to be a member of the chorus and help them earn their 11th medal. Incredible Charlie's lasted till the spring of 1978, and sadly had to close its doors. Mr. Bloodworth said he had run out of money, and since we were operating in the red, he had no choice but to close us down. Mr. Meeker's dream lasted nearly 5 years, and all of us had to go our separate ways to make our own mark in life. I continued to work at Brook Mays in Arlington. I also answered an ad in the paper for a position as a waiter in a dinner theater in Dallas, the Country Dinner Playhouse. They were looking for singers and musicians who were willing to wait on tables and then perform a pre-show entertainment. Sometimes the dinner theater had musicals, sometimes plays. I was hired to play the piano for the Haymakers, as the waitstaff was called. Emmy had kept her job at Whittles and also applied as a Haymaker. We got back together again, and I moved back in with her. Bill Bauer was the producer of the Haymaker pre-show. Dinner Theaters Incorporated owned Country Dinner Playhouse. Dinner Theaters Incorporated also owned dinner theaters in Austin, Texas, Atlanta, Georgia, Columbus, Ohio, Cincinnati, Ohio, and Indianapolis, Indiana. In the summer of 1978, a touring company of Fiddler on the Roof came to Country Dinner Playhouse. Bill Keck from Colorado was the musical director and piano player for the cast. Buff Schur from New York was the director. The show was very successful and played to capacity crowds every night except Monday, with Saturday and Sunday matinees sold out to groups. Most of the cast, including Bill at the piano, were contracted only through August. Fiddler was disbanded on Labor Day. The show had been such a success that the Dinner Theater Incorporated producers wanted to tour the show to their other theaters. They recast the show with people willing to travel. Bill Keck came to me and said he was not able to do the tour and recommended me to Buff Schur. And so, in late September of 1978, I embarked on a 9-month tour of Fiddler on the Roof. Emily did not audition because there was no role for her and because she wanted to keep her job at Whittles. She stayed home and I packed my car. I was housed either at a room in the theater or a nearby apartment at every city on the tour. We would perform anywhere from 6 to 9 weeks at each location and travel by bus and truck. I drove my car as musical director and company manager. We performed 8 shows a week with Monday off. During our stint in Indianapolis's Beef and Board Theater, I was called upon by the manager of that theater in an emergency on a Monday morning. On our Monday nights off, the theater would book a name act to fill an empty house. This particular Monday night's act was Johnny Desmond. Mr. Desmond was born in Detroit, Michigan, and as a boy sang on a local radio station. But at age 15, he quit to work at his father's grocery. He still retained a love of music, however, and briefly attended the Detroit Conservatory of Music before heading to the nightclub circuit, playing piano and singing. In 1939, he formed his own singing group. The group was first called the Downbeats, but after being hired to work with Bob Crosby's big band in 1940, it was renamed the Bobolinks. The group appeared on 15 commercial recordings by the Crosby Orchestra, including 2 charted hits, You Forgot About Me, which reached number 15, and Do You Care, which reached number 18. In the middle of 1941, Johnny Desmond decided to leave the Bobolinks to go solo. He became the featured vocalist for Gene Krupa's band, replacing Howard Dunley in September, recording over a dozen songs, the last of which was All Those Wonderful Years, a song from the movie Keep 'Em Flying, which reached number 21 on the U.S. charts. In 1942, he enlisted in the United States Army, but his military service was in fact a continuation of his singing career. He was a member of Glenn Miller's Army Air Forces Orchestra, and from November 1943 until sometime in 1944, he toured Europe, mainly serving as a replacement for Tony Martin. He made a number of radio broadcasts with the Miller Band, and was even given his own show by the British Broadcasting Corporation, A Soldier and a Song. When the war ended, he took a job on The Breakfast Club, a radio variety program out of Chicago. He made a number of charted hit recordings. Don't You Remember Me, recorded in 1946, reaching number 21 on the charts. Guilty, recorded December 6, 1946, reaching number 12. C'est si bon, recorded in May 11, 1949, reaching number 25. Don't Cry, Joe, recorded May 21, 1949, reaching number 22. Just Say I Love Her, recorded in January 20, 1950, reaching number 24. And The Picnic Song, recorded April 1, 1950, reaching number 20th. Because of You was recorded February 10, 1951, and Woman. On September 24, 1953, he joined with Don Cornell and Alan Dale to record The Gang That Sang Heart of My Heart, a number 10 hit on the chart. During this time, he was switching recording companies frequently. The 1946 recordings were made for RCA Victor, the 1949 and 1951 recordings for MGM, and the 1953 recordings for Coral Records. In the 1940s and 1950s, many artists would record the same song at about the same time, and some chart hits for Desmond were also major hits for other singers. Thus, Guilty, number 12 for Desmond, was an even bigger hit for Margaret Whiting with number 4. In some cases, Desmond's version was the biggest hit. Teresa Brewer also recorded the Picnic Song, but her version did not chart. In addition, Desmond also recorded a number of versions of songs that did not chart but became hits for other singers. For example, Mr. and Mississippi, a hit for Patti Page, and Too Young, a hit for Nat King Cole. In 1957, Johnny Desmond joined Boris Karloff in a guest appearance on NBC's The Giselle McKenzie Show. In 1958, he was cast as a regular, Jim Kendall, in Joan Caulfield's short-lived NBC sitcom Sally. On Broadway, Desmond appeared in Say Darling in 1958 and as Nicky Arnstein in Funny Girl after Sidney Chaplin left the cast. The producer at the Beef and Board Dinner Theater in Indianapolis called me and said that Mr. Desmond's piano player was sick and they needed a sub to play for him. I met Mr. Desmond together with the producer and Mr. Desmond's bass player and drummer. Mr. Desmond was very nice and simply said for us to pick out 30 songs that I knew from his book of 300, and that would be Monday night's concert. I had one quick run-through with the other musicians after I picked out the songs. Mr. Desmond also allowed us to put the show to order together. At 1 hour before showtime, Mr. Desmond took one look at the show order and said, "Good job, let's go have some fun." The theater was sold out, and I copied the rundown from Mr. Desmond and handed him his copy as we went on stage. I don't remember much of how that night went down, but I do remember having a grand time with a standing ovation at the end and Mr. Johnny Desmond complimenting me to the audience with high praises. I did not know that night that 6 years later this man would succumb to cancer and die. If you liked this episode, click like and add your comments. Better still, why don't you subscribe if you haven't already so that you may receive email notifications of future episodes. Also, check out our other worlds at Seven World Productions: the world of art, the world of faith, the world of family, the world of food, the world of games, and the world of music. Go and be inspired.